Raxith the Unbroken stood before the holographic display in his ship's war room, his scaled fingers drumming against the console as he studied the largest bounty posting in galactic history. The numbers glowed in crisp orange light, 50 million credits, plus exclusive data restoration contracts from no fewer than 17 major governments. Below the numbers, a rotating image showed the target. Ixtal Verosch, a Netherian. Netherians were crystalline insectoids, their bodies composed of living silicon matrices that could store and process data in ways that made conventional computers look like counting beads. They were natural couriers, living hard drives with legs. Ixtal's particular neural lattice storage could hold petabytes of encrypted information, seamlessly integrated into his biological structure. He was tall for his species, nearly 7 feet, with a body that refracted light in prismatic patterns, compound eyes that could see across multiple spectrums, and 4 arms that ended in precise manipulators. He had also just destroyed thousands of careers, toppled 3 governments, and exposed enough criminal activity to keep prosecutors busy for decades. Raxith read the details again, though he had already memorized them. 3 months ago, Ixtal Verosch had been a nobody, a data courier working the commercial routes, ferrying encrypted information between corporate clients. Trustworthy, discreet, unremarkable. Then, during a routine delivery, his neural lattice had accidentally intercepted a massive data transfer, not intercepted intentionally. The transfer had simply been so large, transmitted with such power, that his biological storage systems had absorbed it like a sponge soaking up water. When Ixtal realized what he had, he made a choice that would define the rest of his life. The Pandora Cache, as it came to be known, contained terabytes of classified information, military secrets from the Krell Empire, corporate experimental data from Vexholm Industries, including evidence of illegal biological testing on sentient subjects, communications between the Galactic Trade Consortium and various criminal syndicates, proof that the war between the Fenrik Pax and the Multheran Commonwealth had been artificially prolonged for profit by arms dealers on both sides, blackmail material on hundreds of politicians, financial records showing embezzlement on scales that beggared imagination. Ixtal had broadcast it all on open channels, every frequency, every network. He had dumped the entire cache into the public sphere and then run. Raxith respected that, in a distant professional way. It took courage to sign your own death warrant so deliberately. But respect did not mean mercy. The bounty was too large. His reputation demanded he take the contract. He was called the Unbroken for a reason. In 20 years of hunting, Raxith had never failed to deliver a target. His ship, the Crimson Talon, was a masterpiece of predatory engineering. His crew was small but elite. His methods were efficient. He did not rely on brutality or spectacle. He simply never stopped. Targets could run, could hide, could beg. Eventually, Raxith would find them. Eventually, he would collect. This contract would be his masterpiece. He was not alone in thinking so. Across the galaxy, thousands of bounty hunters mobilized. Some were professionals like Raxith. Others were amateurs, drawn by the sheer size of the reward. Criminal organizations dispatched their best assassins. Governments sent covert operatives. Even retired hunters came out of their quiet lives for one last payday. Ixtal Verosch was the most wanted being in known space. For 3 months, he ran. Raxith tracked him through the chase, watching from a distance as other hunters closed in and failed. Ixtal abandoned ships frequently, never staying with one vessel long enough for trackers to lock on. He used decoys, hiring other Netherians to flee in opposite directions while he slipped away. He traveled through waste zones where sensors failed, through nebulas that scattered scanning beams, through asteroid fields where a single ship could hide among millions of rocks. But the net was tightening. Every time Ixtal emerged to resupply or refuel, hunters converged. His options narrowed, his routes became predictable. Raxith could see the pattern emerging, the inevitable conclusion approaching. Ixtal was running out of places to run. The end came at Perihelion Station. It was a failing mining outpost in neutral space, orbiting a massive gas giant named Typhon. The station had seen better days. Its population had dwindled to a few hundred. Its economy survived on marginal ore processing and serving as a way station for ships traveling the outer routes. It was the kind of place people went when they wanted to be forgotten. Ixtal arrived there on a battered freighter, having bribed his way aboard with the last of his credits. He hoped to disappear among the transients, to rest for a few days before moving on. He managed 3 hours. Raxith's network of informants spotted him first, a crystalline insectoid matching Ixtal's description, seen in the station's lower markets. Raxith moved immediately, bringing the Crimson Talon into the system with his weapons hot and his crew ready. But he was not the only hunter who received the alert. Pelloth arrived from the opposite vector. The Wraith assassin traveled in a Shadow-class cutter, a ship designed for stealth and sudden violence. Wraiths were among the galaxy's most feared killers. They could phase shift, their bodies slipping partially out of normal space, allowing them to pass through walls and avoid most conventional weapons. Pelloth had 17 confirmed kills on targets that had been declared impossible to reach. His blade was a monomolecular edge that could cut through armor like tissue. Behind them came lesser hunters, the Fenrik pack ships, wolf-like crews that hunted in coordinated groups. A Quix tech specialist named Shale, who had developed custom drones for target acquisition. A dozen independent operators in various states of desperation and competence. Within 6 hours, Perihelion Station was surrounded. Coordinator Vesh, the Moltheran administrator who ran the station, tried to maintain neutrality. His slug-like body oozed diplomatic protests through the communication channels, insisting that the station was civilian territory, that violence would not be tolerated, that all parties should stand down. No one listened. The hunters established a perimeter. Ships took up positions at every docking port, every approach vector, every possible escape route. Ixtal was trapped inside with nowhere to go. He knew it too. In a rented cubicle in the station's cheapest hab section, Ixtal sat with his back against the wall, his crystalline body dim with exhaustion. His neural lattice still held fragments of the Pandora Cache. He had broadcast most of it, but some files remained, encrypted so deeply that only he could access them. Insurance, he had thought. Leverage. Now it just meant they would dissect him to get at the data. He did not regret the leak. Even now, cornered and facing certain death, Ixtal believed he had done the right thing. The information had needed to be public. The corruption had needed exposure. But belief did not make the waiting easier. He could hear the station systems groaning, could feel the tension in the recycled air. The hunters were coming. Maybe hours, maybe minutes. Ixtal began composing a final message to broadcast, something defiant and memorable, when his communicator chirped, "Unknown sender, station local network." He almost ignored it. Probably a hunter trying to psych him out or offering false deals. But curiosity won. He accepted the connection. A human face appeared on the small screen. Male, perhaps 40 standard years, with dark skin, close-cropped hair showing gray at the temples, and eyes that held both humor and something harder beneath. He wore a battered flight jacket with various patches that Ixtal did not recognize. "Ixtal Verosch?" the human said. His voice carried an accent Ixtal could not place, smooth and confident. "Who are you?" "Name's Aldric Tessin, captain of a ship called the Longshot. I'm currently docked at this extremely popular station, and I couldn't help but notice you've attracted quite the fan club." Ixtal's mandibles clicked in what might have been bitter amusement. "If you are here to negotiate for the bounty, you are late. There is a queue." "Bounty?" Aldric's expression shifted to mock offense. "Do I look like a hunter to you? I'm a legitimate businessman." "Smuggler. I prefer import-export specialist with flexible regulatory interpretations. But sure, smuggler works." Aldric leaned back, and Ixtal could see behind him what looked like a ship's cockpit, compact and lived in. "I watched your broadcast, the whole thing. Took me 6 days to get through all that data. You know what I concluded?" Ixtal waited. Anyone who pisses off that many powerful assholes simultaneously is either incredibly stupid or has a death wish. Either way, I respect it. Despite everything, Ixtal felt something like warmth in his thorax. "Your respect is noted. It will not stop them from killing me." "Probably not," Aldric agreed, "unless you want to do something really crazy." "Such as?" "Come to Earth." The words hung in the air between them. Ixtal's compound eyes refocused, trying to determine if this was a joke. Earth? Human territory. The very same. That is halfway across the galaxy. Quarter way, really, And I happen to be heading in that general direction. Could use the company. Ship gets lonely. Ixtal's mind raced through possibilities, analyzing the offer for traps and angles. Humans were an enigma in galactic society. They had emerged onto the interstellar stage only 70 years ago, bursting out of their single system with a recklessness that had shocked established civilizations. They had no ancient culture, no time-tested traditions, no careful diplomatic heritage. They simply showed up, built things, made alliances, picked fights, and refused to follow anyone else's rules. Human territory was considered strange, not dangerous in the conventional sense. Humans were not conquerors. They did not raid or pillage. But their legal systems were labyrinthine and contradictory. Their politics were incomprehensible to most species, and they had a reputation for protecting people in ways that defied galactic norms. "Why would you help me?" Ixtal asked. Aldric's smile widened. "Because fuck 'em, that's why. Also, Earth loves a good scandal. You'll be a celebrity." He leaned forward. "Here's the thing about human territory. We've got this funny relationship with extradition. Don't really believe in it, mostly. Our governments argue about it constantly, but the general consensus is that once you're in our space, bounties get complicated. No treaties obligating us to hand anyone over, no legal requirement to cooperate with foreign bounty hunters. And humans get really, really territorial about people trying to take someone from our space. You are suggesting asylum. I'm suggesting you stop waiting to die and start running toward something instead of away from everything else." Ixtal considered. He had no better options. The station was surrounded. Even if he managed to fight his way to a ship, he would be destroyed before clearing the system. This human's offer was insane, implausible, and possibly suicidal. It was also the only chance he had. "How would we even escape? They have blocked every docking port." Aldric's grin turned sharp. "Ever been launched out of an airlock during a magnetic storm?" 30 minutes later, Ixtal found himself in the station's maintenance bay, climbing into an industrial exoframe used for exterior hull repairs. The suit was bulky, designed for Moltheran workers, and Ixtal's crystalline body did not fit properly. Aldric stood beside him, wearing his own pressure suit, checking seals and connections with practiced efficiency. "This is insane," Ixtal said. "Completely," Aldric agreed cheerfully. "That's what makes it fun." The plan was absurd. Perihelion Station orbited Typhon, the gas giant, in a decaying trajectory that took it through the planet's intense magnetic field every 14 hours. The field played havoc with sensors, creating storms of interference that could scramble even military-grade detection systems. During these windows, the station's operators typically shut down non-essential systems and waited for the turbulence to pass. Aldric intended to use the storm as cover. His ship, the Longshot, would approach from Typhon's shadow, hidden from the hunter fleet by the planet's mass. Meanwhile, Aldric would take Ixtal to a specific section of the station's outer hull. Using shape charges positioned days earlier by Aldric's crew during a routine maintenance contract, they would blow a hole in the hull. The explosive decompression would eject Ixtal into space inside the exoframe. The storm would scramble targeting. The Longshot, piloted remotely by Aldric's crew, would use its grappler to catch Ixtal mid-void and accelerate away before the hunters realized what had happened. It required precise timing, extraordinary luck, and a willingness to be explosively decompressed into space. "Your crew is confident they can catch me?" Ixtal asked, his voice muffled inside the exoframe's helmet. "My crew could thread a needle in a hurricane while drunk. You'll be fine. And you? How do you escape?" "I'll take a station shuttle during the chaos, meet up with the Longshot at a rendezvous point in the debris field around Typhon's fourth moon. Easy." Nothing about this was easy, but Ixtal found himself trusting this reckless human, perhaps because there was no alternative, perhaps because Aldric's confidence was infectious, perhaps because, after 3 months of running in fear, it felt good to do something audacious. They moved through the station's maintenance tunnels, avoiding populated areas. Aldric knew the layout perfectly, having apparently spent the last 2 days mapping every corridor and access point. When they reached the designated section, a section of outer hull marked with a small painted symbol, Aldric activated his comm. "Longshot, this is Tessin. Status?" A woman's voice responded, crisp and professional. "In position, Captain. Storm window opens in 6 minutes. Grappler is hot, we're ready. Outstanding. Initiate countdown. Mark on my signal. Aldric turned to Ixtal. Last chance to back out, I won't judge. Ixtal's mandibles clicked in what he hoped looked like determination. Let us proceed. That's the spirit. Okay, here's how this works. When I blow the charges, the hull will rupture. The pressure differential will suck everything out. You'll be moving fast. Don't fight it. Don't try to control your trajectory. Just let the exoframe's thrusters stabilize you. My crew will do the rest. Clear? Clear! Aldric set the charges, small, precisely shaped explosives that would direct the blast outward, creating a clean breach without destroying surrounding structure. He double-checked the seals on Ixtal's exoframe, then on his own suit. Then he activated the timer. Storm window in 3 minutes, the longshot reported. They waited. Ixtal could feel his heart's pounding in multiple rhythms, a biological response to stress that his species had evolved millions of years ago. Outside the station, he knew the hunter fleet maintained their perimeter. Raxith would be watching. Pelloth would be waiting. None of them suspected that their target was about to be shot into space like a torpedo. Storm window opening. Sensors are scrambling across the system. Now, Captain. Aldric triggered the charges. The explosion was shaped, directed, but still violent. The hull section blew outward in a spray of metal fragments. Atmosphere screamed out of the breach, carrying everything not bolted down. Ixtal felt the exoframe yanked off its feet, pulled by the irresistible force of explosive decompression. He tumbled through the gap in the hull, spinning wildly, and then he was in space. Typhon dominated his view, a massive swirl of colors and storms. The magnetic field created visible auroras, sheets of charged particles dancing across his vision. His exoframe's thrusters fired automatically, stabilizing his spin. He was moving fast, ejected from the station with tremendous velocity, tumbling through a debris field of ice and rock. His radio crackled. Target acquired, Grappler deploying. Ixtal could not see the longshot. The storm made everything a confused blur of sensor noise. But then he felt it, a physical impact. The Grappler, a magnetic clamp on an extendable arm, locked onto his exoframe with a clang that resonated through the suit. The arm retracted, pulling him through space at speeds that would have been terrifying if he was not already terrified. 90 seconds after the hull breach, Ixtal was pulled into the longshot's cargo bay. The door sealed, atmosphere flooded back. He collapsed in the exoframe, his body shaking with adrenaline and relief. A human woman appeared above him, young, with short blonde hair and grease stains on her hands. "Welcome aboard. I'm Lissa, first mate. You good?" "I'm alive." "That's a start. Come on, let's get you out of that coffin." By the time they extracted Ixtal from the exoframe, the longshot was already accelerating away from perihelion station at maximum burn. The ship's interior was cramped, every surface covered with modifications and jury-rigged systems. It smelled of oil and recycled air and something spicy that Ixtal could not identify. Lissa led him to a small medical bay where another crew member, a man with cybernetic arms and a perpetual scowl, checked him for injuries. "Nothing broken. You're lucky. People who get blown out of airlocks usually don't look this good." "Where is Captain Tessin?" "Still on the station. He'll catch up." Ixtal wanted to ask how, but the ship lurched as it changed vectors. Alarm sounded. Lissa swore and ran toward the cockpit. "We've got pursuit." Ixtal followed, his legs unsteady. The cockpit was barely large enough for 3 people. Lissa took the pilot's seat, her hands flying over controls. The view screen showed perihelion station receding behind them and 3 ships breaking formation to follow. "Fenrik pack ships," Lissa muttered. "Fast ones. They figured out we grabbed you." "Can we outrun them?" "Not for long, but we don't need long. Just need to get to the debris field." The longshot dove toward Typhon's rings, a chaotic maze of ice and rock orbiting the gas giant. The Fenrik ships followed, their pack mentality making them coordinate their pursuit with frightening efficiency. They did not fire, not yet. They wanted Ixtal alive to claim the bounty. Lissa threaded the longshot through the debris field with skill that bordered on recklessness. Chunks of ice the size of buildings flashed past the view screen. Alarms screamed as proximity sensors detected collision courses, but Lissa avoided each impact with centimeters to spare. The Fenrik ship struggled to match her maneuvers. One clipped a boulder and spun away, damaged but not destroyed. "Approaching rendezvous point," Lissa announced. "Captain, you better be there." A small shuttle emerged from behind one of Typhon's moons, burning hard toward them. Ixtal could see Aldric in the pilot's seat through the cockpit window, his face split with a huge grin. The shuttle matched velocity with the Longshot, aligning with a docking port. "Docking in 30 seconds. Hold them off, Lissa." "Doing my best." The remaining Fenrik ships closed in, their patience exhausted. They opened fire, not with lethal weapons, but with disabling rounds designed to cripple engines without destroying the target. The Longshot shuddered as impacts struck the aft shields. 20 seconds. Shields at 40%. 10 seconds. The shuttle connected with a clang. Magnetic clamps engaged. Aldric's voice came through the ship's comm. "I'm aboard! Go, go, go!" Lissa punched the throttle. The Longshot's engines flared, propelling the ship out of the debris field with acceleration that pressed Ixtal against the bulkhead. The Fenrik ships tried to follow, but Lissa had timed it perfectly. The Longshot cleared the field just as the magnetic storm intensified, creating a wall of interference that scrambled targeting and sensors. By the time the storm cleared, the Longshot was gone. Aldric entered the cockpit, still wearing his pressure suit, his face flushed with exertion and excitement. "And that, my crystalline friend, is how you escape from an impossible situation." Ixtal's mandibles clicked rapidly. "You are insane. I prefer creatively motivated." "Good work, Lissa. How's our tail?" "Lost them in the storm. They'll reacquire eventually, but we've got a good lead. Jumping to FTL in 2 minutes. Aldric clapped Ixtal on one crystalline shoulder. "Welcome to the crew, temporary crew, whatever. Point is, you're safe for now. Next stop, human territory." Ixtal allowed himself to believe it, if only for a moment. "They will follow." "Oh, absolutely. That's what makes it interesting." Raxith watched the long-range sensors as the Longshot disappeared into FTL, taking his target with it. His scaled fist clenched once, then relaxed. Around him, the Crimson Talon's bridge crew waited for orders. "Analysis," Raxith said calmly. Shale, his Quix-Tech specialist, chirped from her station, her bird-like body hunched over multiple screens, her feathered crests flicking in concentration. The extraction was sophisticated. They used the magnetic storm as cover. Based on trajectory, they are heading toward human space, Sol system likely. Distance? 4 FTL jumps minimum, maybe 5 if they take indirect routes. Raxith considered. Human space. He knew the reputation, had heard the stories. Bounty hunters who pursued targets across that border often returned empty-handed, their contracts unfulfilled. But those hunters had not been Raxith the Unbroken. His reputation was built on never abandoning a hunt. "Plot pursuit vectors, contact the other hunters, coordinate our approach. This target will not escape." Shale hesitated. "Commander, the humans have no extradition treaties. If the target reaches Earth, then we take him before he reaches Earth. Prepare the ship. We leave in 10 minutes. Across the system, Pelloth received the same trajectory data in his Shadow-class cutter. The Wraith assassin stood in his meditation chamber, his body phasing in and out of normal space as he contemplated the hunt. Humans. He had killed humans before. They were fragile, easy to phase through, simple to cut. Their technology was adequate but not exceptional. Their defenses relied on conventional weapons that could not touch a properly phased Wraith. If necessary, Pelloth would follow Ixtal into human territory and complete the contract there. Laws were irrelevant to shadows. Treaties meant nothing to those who could walk through walls. He began preparing his infiltration equipment. The Longshot made 4 FTL jumps over the next 3 days, each one carefully calculated to minimize the chance of interdiction. Between jumps, Aldric's crew worked to repair damage from the escape and upgrade systems in preparation for what they knew was coming. Ixtal spent the time learning about humans. The ship's database held extensive information about Earth and its colonies, and Ixtal absorbed it with the natural curiosity of his species. He learned about human history, their brief but explosive expansion into space, their chaotic political systems that somehow functioned despite appearing dysfunctional. He learned about their wars, their arts, their strange customs. One evening, ship time, he found Aldric in the galley eating something that smelled both appealing and concerning. The captain gestured to the empty seat across from him. "Join me. You eat, right? Not just photosynthesize or something?" I consume nutrient solutions, Ixtal said, settling into the chair. His crystalline body refracted the galley's lights in rainbow patterns. We've got those. Lisa can fix you up. Aldric took another bite of his meal, something involving bread and vegetables. So, you holding up okay? I'm alive, thanks to you. Thanks to a lot of luck and lices flying. But you're welcome. Aldric studied him. You know they're still coming, right? The hunters. This isn't over. I know. I have been monitoring your communications. Multiple ships are pursuing. At least 7 that we've confirmed. Probably more we haven't spotted. Aldric did not seem concerned. But here's the thing. Once we cross into Sol system, into actual human territory, the rules change. The hunters know that. Some will turn back. The smart ones, anyway. And the others? The others will learn a lesson. Aldric leaned back. You want to know why I'm doing this? Really? Ixtal tilted his head, compound eyes focusing. Yes. I grew up on Earth, place called Kenya, beautiful country. My family wasn't rich, but we did okay. I joined the merchant fleet when I was 18, started running cargo between Earth and the colonies, did that for 10 years. Then I got bored with regulations and quotas and bosses telling me what to haul and where to go. So I bought this ship, scraped together every credit I had, and went independent. Became a smuggler because the rules were stupid, and I figured I could do more good breaking them than following them. He paused, organizing his thoughts. Earth has this thing about people who stand up to powerful assholes. We're not perfect. We've got plenty of our own problems, plenty of corruption and injustice. But there's this thread in human culture, goes back thousands of years. We like underdogs. We like whistleblowers. We like people who see something wrong and decide to burn their own lives down to expose it. That's you. You had everything to lose and nothing to gain, and you dumped all that data anyway because it was the right thing to do. In my book, that makes you worth protecting. Ixtal felt something warm in his thorax again, an emotion his species did not have precise words for, gratitude mixed with kinship. Your species is strange. You have no idea. Wait until you meet my mother. She's going to love you. They made the final jump to Sol system 2 days later. The transition from FTL to normal space was always disorienting, reality snapping back into focus as the ship dropped below light speed. The longshot emerged at the system's edge near a human checkpoint station called Geneva. Geneva Station was not impressive by galactic standards. It was a modest construction, a wheel-shaped habitat orbiting at the edge of Sol's heliosphere, where interstellar space met the sun's influence. But it was heavily armed. Weapon platforms surrounded it like a steel garden, magnetic accelerator cannons pointed outward at the darkness. Human defense ships patrolled in careful formations. Aldric opened a communication channel. Geneva Station, this is the Longshot, Registry Hotel Echo 7729er, requesting approach and docking. The response came immediately, a woman's voice with a crisp military tone. Longshot, Geneva Control. We have you on scope. Transmit cargo manifest and crew roster. Transmitting now. Be advised, we've got a passenger claiming asylum. Ixtal Verosch. You've probably heard of him. A pause. Then, stand by, Longshot. The pause stretched. Ixtal felt his hearts accelerating again. This was the moment. If the humans refused entry, if they decided to honor the bounty, everything ended here. Longshot, Geneva Control. Permission to dock granted. Bay 7. Welcome to human space, Mr. Verosch. Relief flooded through Ixtal's body. Aldric grinned and guided the ship toward the station. As they approached, Ixtal looked back through the aft view screen at the darkness of interstellar space. Out there, somewhere, the hunters were coming. He wondered how many would follow him across this invisible line. He would not have to wait long to find out. Raxith's fleet arrived at the edge of Sol system 6 hours after the Longshot docked at Geneva Station. 7 ships total. The Crimson Talon, Pelloth's Shadow-class cutter, 3 Fenrik pack vessels, and 2 independent hunters in medium frigates. It was an impressive assembly, more coordination than hunters usually managed. The bounty had made strange allies. They held position at the system's edge, analyzing. Geneva Station was visible on long-range scans, as were the defense platforms surrounding it. Shale provided a detailed breakdown of human defensive capabilities, which were concerning but not overwhelming. They rely on kinetic weapons primarily, she reported. Magnetic accelerator cannons, effective but limited range. If we approach from multiple vectors, coordinate our timing, we can overwhelm their targeting solutions. Raxith studied the tactical display. And the target? Still docked at Geneva Station. We have time. One of the Fenrik captains, a scarred veteran named Toruk, growled over the communication channel. Why do we wait? We have the strength. We take the station, retrieve the target, leave before human reinforcements arrive. Because that would be war, Raxith said calmly. We are hunters, not invaders. The bounty is large. It is not worth starting a conflict with an entire species. Raxith magnified the view of Geneva Station. We will approach under diplomatic flag, request an audience with station command, make our case legally. Pelloth's voice, cold and smooth, joined the channel. And if they refuse? Then we assess alternatives. Raxith began composing a formal communication to Geneva Station. But we do this professionally. We are not pirates. The message was transmitted. Then they waited. Admiral Grendel commanded the defensive flotilla assigned to Geneva Station. He was 63 years old, a veteran of the Earth-Mars trade disputes and the Titan Rebellion. He had joined the military at 18, served in various capacities across 4 decades, and retired to a desk job at Geneva specifically because it was supposed to be quiet. Then Ixtal Verosch arrived. Grendel read the message from the hunter fleet with a mixture of amusement and irritation. They wanted an audience. They wanted to negotiate. They wanted, essentially, for humans to hand over a person who had requested asylum so that he could be killed or dissected for the information in his head. Grendel's response was simple. Come aboard, unarmed, we'll talk. To his mild surprise, one of them accepted. Raxith the Unbroken, the message identified him. A Krell. Grendel had dealt with Krell before. Honorable warriors usually. Straightforward. He could work with that. Raxith arrived at Geneva Station in a small shuttle, accompanied only by his Quicks tech specialist. Station security scanned them thoroughly, confirmed they were unarmed, and escorted them to the command center. Grendel waited in his office, a spare room with large windows looking out at Sol's distant sun. When Raxith entered, Grendel took a moment to assess. The Krell stood nearly 8 feet tall, his body covered in interlocking armored plates that looked like they could stop bullets. His eyes were reptilian, cold and intelligent. He moved with the confidence of someone who had never lost a fight. Admiral Grendel, Raxith said, his voice a deep rumble, thank you for receiving me. Mr. Raxith, please sit. Grendel gestured to a reinforced chair designed for larger species. Shale perched on a smaller seat beside her commander. I understand you're here about Ixtal Verosch. I am, and I believe you understand why. The bounty, 50 million credits, very impressive. It reflects the seriousness of his crimes. Grendel leaned back. See, that's where we disagree. My analysts have been through the Pandora Cache, all of it. You know what we found? Evidence of corruption on a scale that makes our worst politicians look like amateurs. War crimes, slavery, biological experiments on sentient populations, and that's just the first terabyte. He folded his hands. Mr. Verosch didn't commit crimes. He exposed them. That is a political interpretation. Legally, he stole and disseminated classified information. Information that proved half the galaxy's leadership are criminals. Grendel's voice remained calm but firm. Mr. Raxith, I've read your file. You're a professional. You have a code. You don't take contracts on innocent people. So let me ask you, do you genuinely believe Ixtal Verosch deserves to die? Raxith was silent for a moment. Shale shifted uncomfortably beside him. Finally he said, what I believe is irrelevant. I accepted the contract. And I respect that. You're a man of your word, but here's the situation. Grendel stood, walking to the window. Ixtal Verosch landed on our doorstep asking for help. We've reviewed his case. We've granted him asylum under human jurisdiction. He is now under our protection. That's not a political decision. That's our law. We don't hand people over for doing the right thing. He will never leave human space then. He will remain here forever? If necessary, yes. Raxith's tail, thick and armored, lashed once. You would harbor a fugitive indefinitely to protect him? This is economically and diplomatically costly. Grendel smiled without humor. Son, we once had a man living in an embassy for 7 years because we wouldn't let another government have him. And he wasn't even that interesting. You think we'll get bored before you do? What if I wait? Station my fleet at the edge of your system. Eventually, he will leave. You can try. You'll be here a long time. Also, I should mention, your fleet is currently surrounded by defense platforms that have been tracking you since you entered the system. If any of your ships attempt to approach Geneva Station or pursue vessels departing toward Earth, those platforms will fire. Not warning shots, full salvos. We don't bluff and we don't negotiate with armed fleets in our territory. Raxith's eyes narrowed. You would start a war over one fugitive? We would defend someone under our protection. That's not starting a war. That's finishing one you'd be starting by attacking. Grendel returned to his desk. Look, I get it. This is your livelihood. Your reputation is on the line. But here's the reality. Ixtal Verosch is untouchable now. You can accept that and move on to other contracts, or you can waste months waiting for something that won't happen. Your choice. Shal spoke for the first time, her voice high and chirping. Admiral, surely there is room for compromise. Perhaps if Mr. Verosch were to surrender the remaining data from the cache. He's not surrendering anything. He's a free person under our protection, not a bargaining chip. Raxith stood, his full height impressive even in the large office. Admiral Grendel, I respect your position. I do not agree with it, but I respect it. However, I cannot simply abandon this contract. My reputation is worth more than 50 million credits. I understand, but reputations survive setbacks. They don't survive stupidity. Grendel met the Krell's gaze steadily. You're a smart hunter, Mr. Raxith. You've survived 20 years in a dangerous profession. You survived because you know when to walk away. This is one of those times. The office was silent for a long moment. Finally, Raxith nodded slowly. I will consider your words, Admiral. Thank you for your time. You're welcome to remain at the station for 72 hours. After that, I'll need you to move your fleet outside the heliosphere. Can't have armed vessels lingering indefinitely. You understand? Of course. Grendel watched as Raxith and Shale were escorted out. He felt a measure of respect for the Krell. The hunter was professional, honorable even, just on the wrong side of this particular equation. Some of the others out there, though, would not be so reasonable. His communicator chirped. Admiral, we've detected a stealth vessel attempting to approach the station. Shadow-class configuration. It's phasing in and out of normal space. Grendel sighed. Of course there is. Deploy EM field generators. Light it up. Pelloth had been a Wraith assassin for 30 years. He had killed targets in locked rooms, in guarded fortresses, in moving vehicles. His ability to phase through matter made him nearly impossible to stop. He had studied human defenses during his approach, confident he could slip through their sensors while partially phased, board the station, locate Ixtal Verosch, and complete the contract before anyone realized he was there. He did not account for humans being familiar with phase-shifting technology. Geneva Station's defense systems included electromagnetic field generators originally designed for containing plasma, but which had been repurposed after several encounters with Wraith infiltrators. When Pelloth's cutter approached within weapons range, still phased and theoretically invisible, the generators activated. The EM field flooded local space with precisely tuned electromagnetic radiation that interfered with the exotic matter energy states necessary for phase shifting. It was like trying to swim through concrete. Pelloth's ship shuddered, flickered, and snapped back into normal space, fully visible. Alarms screamed in his cockpit. Defense platforms locked on. Pelloth attempted to retreat to escape back into phase state, but the field held him solid. Unidentified vessel, this is Geneva Station Defense Control. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Pelloth made a split-second calculation. He was alone, outgunned, trapped in normal space by technology he had not anticipated. Fighting would accomplish nothing except his death. He powered down. Human security forces boarded his ship 17 minutes later, heavily armed and wearing armor that generated personal EM fields. They moved with professional efficiency, clearing each compartment, securing his weapons, and taking him into custody without unnecessary violence. In the holding cell, Pelloth sat in meditation, his shadowy form flickering despite the EM field, keeping him mostly solid. He had failed. The contract was impossible. Humans had prepared for his kind specifically, which meant they had dealt with Wraith infiltrators before and learned. His reputation, carefully built over decades, was damaged beyond repair. After processing, Geneva Station deported him with a lifetime ban from human space and a notation in his file that would follow him across every bounty network in the galaxy. By the time he reached his ship and departed Sol system, the entire hunter community knew. Pelloth the Wraith had been captured in 17 minutes. Raxith heard the news in his quarters on Geneva Station. He sat alone, studying the tactical displays, running scenarios. 3 days of analysis had led him to an inescapable conclusion. The contract was unwinnable. Not difficult, not challenging. Unwinnable. He could wait at the system's edge for months, years even, and Ixtal would never leave human protection. He could attempt to assault Geneva Station, and his fleet would be destroyed by the defense platforms. He could try infiltration, but Pelloth's failure proved humans were prepared for that. Every scenario ended in failure or death. The mathematics were clear. The bounty was 50 million credits. His operating costs were approximately 10,000 credits per day. Waiting for 6 months would cost him 1.8 million credits. His crew needed other contracts to stay loyal. Other hunters were taking jobs he could be completing, building their reputations while his stagnated. Every day he spent waiting was a day he lost money and opportunity. And for what? A target that had reached sanctuary, a contract that could not be completed. Raxith the Unbroken had never failed to deliver a target in 20 years. That record was important to him, a source of pride and professional identity. But he had also survived 20 years by knowing when to cut losses, by being smart, by understanding that some battles could not be won. He activated his communicator, opening a channel to his fleet. All ships, this is Raxith. Prepare to depart Sol system. We are abandoning the contract. Shale looked up from her console, surprised. Commander? The contract is unwinnable. We have spent 3 days confirming this. Further pursuit is unprofitable and damages our ability to accept other work. We leave. The Fenrik captain, Toruk, protested immediately. You abandon 50 million credits? I abandon a fantasy. The target is protected by a species that does not negotiate and does not extradite. We can wait forever or die trying to take him. Neither option serves our interests. Raxith's voice was firm. I am returning to the spoke to accept other contracts. Those who wish to remain and wait are welcome to do so. I will not. One by one, the other hunters acknowledged. The 2 independent operators agreed immediately, recognizing the same mathematics Raxith had calculated. The Fenrik pack argued among themselves for an hour before conceding. By the end of the day, 6 of the 7 ships had departed Sol system. Only one young, ambitious hunter named Krevix remained, convinced he could outsmart the humans, convinced the bounty was too large to abandon. He would spend the next 8 months stationed at Sol's edge, watching Geneva Station through long-range sensors, waiting for an opportunity that never came. Eventually, bankrupt and broken, he would leave as well. But that was months away. For now, the greatest bounty hunt in galactic history was effectively over. Ixtal Verosch learned of Raxith's departure from Aldric, who delivered the news with characteristic irreverence. The big, scary lizard packed up and left. So did most of his friends. Told you humans were good at this. They were in a cafeteria on Geneva Station, eating food that Ixtal found both fascinating and overwhelming. Human cuisine was chaotic, flavors combining in ways his species would never have considered. He was drinking something called coffee, bitter and energizing, that Aldric insisted was essential to human civilization. I am free then? Ixtal asked. Free-ish. You're still technically wanted across most of the galaxy. But inside human space, yeah, you're good. They can't touch you here. Aldric leaned back, his expression satisfied. Told you it would work. You risked everything to help me. Why? Aldric considered the question seriously this time. Because I watched your broadcast and saw someone who cared more about truth than survival. That's rare. Most people, most species, they'll compromise, they'll stay quiet, they'll go along to get along. You didn't. You burned your whole life down because the information needed to be public. That kind of courage deserves backup. Your species is unique. Oh, we're a mess in a lot of ways, but we've got this thing about protecting people who stand up to power. Goes back to our history. We've been oppressed, we've been conquered, we've been silenced. We know what it's like. So when someone like you comes along, Someone who fights back even when it's hopeless. We recognize that. We respect it, and yeah, we'll protect it. Ixtal's mandibles clicked thoughtfully. What happens now? Now? You come to Earth, meet some people, tell your story. The Pandora Cache has already changed things, governments falling, investigations starting. You're a celebrity. Might as well enjoy it. Aldric grinned. Also, my mother is absolutely going to adopt you. I'm not even joking. She collects people who need help. You'll love her. I look forward to it. 3 weeks later, Ixtal stood on Earth for the first time. The planet was overwhelming in its diversity, its chaotic beauty, its sheer aliveness. Aldric's family home in Kenya sat in the highlands, overlooking valleys that stretched to distant mountains. The sky was blue in a way Ixtal had never seen, and the air smelled of growing things. Aldric's mother, Amara, was a small woman with gray hair and eyes that missed nothing. She took one look at Ixtal and immediately began fussing over him, asking if he was comfortable, if he needed anything, if human food was compatible with his biology. She spoke to him like he was a visiting relative rather than an alien fugitive. Over dinner, which involved far too much food and conversation that jumped between topics with dizzying speed, Ixtal found himself relaxing for the first time in months. The family talked about everything and nothing, arguing good-naturedly about politics and sports and which cousin was going to embarrass themselves at the upcoming wedding. They included Ixtal naturally, asking his opinions, laughing at his attempts to understand human humor. That night, standing on a balcony overlooking the valley, Ixtal watched Earth's moon rise. Aldric joined him, carrying 2 bottles of something he called beer. "So," Aldric said, "was it worth it? The leak, the running, all of it?" Ixtal considered. He thought about the governments that had fallen, the investigations that had started, the conversations happening across the galaxy about transparency and accountability. He thought about the price he had paid, exile from everywhere except this one system, wanted by thousands, unable to ever return to his homeworld. "Yes," he said finally, "it was worth it." "Good, because you're stuck with us now. Fair warning, humans are exhausting. We never stop moving, never stop talking, never stop getting into trouble." "I have noticed." "You'll fit right in." The news of what happened at Sol System spread through bounty hunter networks quickly. Within weeks, every hunter in the galaxy knew the story. Ixtal Verosch had reached human territory, and everyone who pursued him had either abandoned the contract or failed. The bounty was still technically active, still offering 50 million credits, but it had become a joke. A theoretical reward that could never be claimed. Young hunters, ambitious and inexperienced, would occasionally look at the posting and dream. Their mentors would shut those dreams down immediately. "Don't," they would say. "He reached human territory. That target's dead. Not him, the contract. Once they're there, they're untouchable. Every hunter knows it now." Some would ask why humans were like that, why they protected people at such cost to themselves. The answers varied, but the theme was consistent. Because they can be, and because they think it's funny when the rest of us learn the hard way. Raxith the Unbroken continued his career, taking other contracts, delivering other targets. His reputation survived the failed hunt for Ixtal Verosch because he had made the smart choice to walk away. Other hunters respected that. They understood. Sometimes a target reached sanctuary. Sometimes a contract could not be completed. The profession continued. He never went back to Sol System. Years later, when asked about it in an interview, Raxith said simply, "The human admiral was correct. Some battles cannot be won. Knowing which ones matters more than strength." Pelloth retired. The failure at Geneva Station, the embarrassment of capture, the speed with which humans had neutralized his abilities, it all proved he had become obsolete. He returned to his homeworld and took up teaching, training the next generation of Wraith operatives and warning them about humanity's adaptability. The Pandora Cache continued to reshape galactic politics for years. Investigations uncovered deeper corruption than even Ixtal had suspected. Reforms happened slowly, but they happened. And through it all, Ixtal Verosch lived on Earth, protected by a species that refused to surrender him no matter how many credits were offered. He became a symbol, not just of whistleblowing or courage, but of something more fundamental, the idea that some lines should not be crossed, that some protections should not be violated, that doing the right thing, even at terrible cost, mattered. And every bounty hunter in the galaxy learned a simple lesson. Don't chase a target into human territory. They don't follow the rules. They don't care about bounties. They care about people who stand up to power, and they'll protect those people with a stubbornness that borders on insanity. 5 years after arriving on Earth, Ixtal stood at a podium in Geneva, addressing the Galactic Council's Committee on Information Transparency. He had been invited to speak about the Pandora Cache, about whistleblowing, about the importance of accountability. Behind him sat Admiral Grendel, retired now but still influential. Beside the stage, Aldric watched with his characteristic grin. Ixtal spoke about truth, about courage, about the systems that enabled corruption and the individuals who exposed it. He spoke about the price he had paid and why it had been worth paying. And he spoke about humanity, the strange species that had protected him when every rational calculation said they should not. "I was hunted across the galaxy," Ixtal said, his translated voice carrying through the chamber. "I was cornered, I was desperate, and I was certain I would die. Then a human offered me an impossible escape and followed through on an insane plan. Then other humans protected me against every legal, economic, and diplomatic pressure. They did this not because they owed me anything, not because they gained anything, but because they believed it was right." He paused, his crystalline body refracting the chamber's lights. "I have learned many things about humanity in my time among them. They are chaotic, contradictory, frustrating, and strange. But they are also loyal to their values in ways I have never seen. They protect the vulnerable. They oppose the powerful. They refuse to abandon people who need help, even when helping is costly." His compound eyes swept the chamber. The galaxy would benefit from being more like them. The speech was broadcast across human space and beyond. It became one of the most watched addresses in Council history. And in bars and ships and stations across the galaxy, bounty hunters watched and understood the message beneath the message. Human territory was sanctuary, absolute, inviolable, protected not by treaties or laws but by humans who simply refused to let go of people under their protection. The bounty on Ixtal Verosch remained active for another decade before finally being withdrawn, unclaimed. By then, it had become legendary not for its size, but for its impossibility. The target that could not be caught because he had made it to Earth, and every new bounty hunter just starting their career would eventually hear the story. They would be told about Raxith the Unbroken, who walked away, about Pelloth the Wraith, who was captured in 17 minutes, about the 50 million credits that no one ever claimed. And they would learn the lesson that defined modern bounty hunting, why every bounty hunter quit after the target reached human territory.